Well, as you can see, eighth graders, we have a big job ahead of us now because we're going to get into probably the biggest part of the year is e- expressions and equations, which is all of section 3, and functions, which is all of section 4. So when you go to Study Island, you'll be practicing the things we're going to begin to talk about now. And that will be a big, big part of the spring testing that they will devise. And it will get us over the hump, really, for a lot of the work that's required. So we're not gonna do all of this right now, but we're gonna get into the foundation of it so that hopefully it will make the process much easier in the end. Now, just like we've talked about in 7th grade, you have to have a good foundation to do work. Any work, and math work is no exception. Matter of fact, math work might even be more dependent on having a good foundation because you keep using the same concepts repeatedly for different purposes. So, I'm going to begin the process. So since I have this on the board right now, I'm going to take off the functions part so that we'll have a little more board space to work with. But we're going to come back to that. So that's not going to be lost. We probably won't get to it today, but I wanted you to know that it's there. It's there waiting for us to get to it. So what we're going to talk about now, we're going to get started with this. So the foundation that we need, you're already familiar with, but we're going to go back over it just in case anyone needs review. So the first topic here, I think, has to do with graphing. I don't have it up on my computer right now, but I think that's what it talks about, graphing. Matter of fact, I can look at this sheet and see. It says graphing proportional and linear relationships. So it has to do with graphing. So graphing requires a coordinate plane. So let's just develop one since that's what's needed. So we develop a plane. You're going to be able to put this down, and you already remember this from before. So the coordinate plane has 4 parts, and it looks similar to this. So I'm going to label it just like we've done before in 7th grade, maybe even 6th grade. So the point where this crosses, we're going to call O for origin, O-R-I-G-I-N, origin. That's where these 2 lines cross. And the 2 lines are called axes. So what do we have? We have, and I'm going to color coordinate them just to be different. Y, that's not writing. We have Y axis, A-X-I-S. And then we have the X axis. And so we have a y-axis that is up and down, which you know the word for up and down. We're going to put it here vertical, V-E-R-T-I-C-A-L, vertical. Means it goes north to south, up and down. And then we have the x-axis, which goes from left to right, or right to left, however you want to say it, and that's horizontal. Now you're going to write this down for yourself later, or you can stop the video at any point you want, and you can make your own copy. Now it's important that you make your own copies because, as you know, which I've said before, writing it gives it the opportunity to become imprinted in your mind. So since our axes, now the plural since we have two axes, we say we have the x and y axes, A-X-E-S. That's plural. So if we talk about only the y, we say axis. If only the x, we say axis. If we talk about x and y, we talk about axes. One is vertical. Now we put arrows on the end of these lines, segments. And you know that arrow is the explanation for us, the symbol for us, that even though these are short, they go on forever in both directions. The y-axis goes up forever and down forever. The x-axis goes to the left forever and to the y forever. And as you know, the symbol for ever is this. So we could put one down here and one there too. And you know that that symbol stands for the word infinity. I-N-F-I-N-I-T-Y. Just like the car that they called Infinity. They give the car the name Infinity to create the feeling in your mind that that car will last forever. But it's not. It won't last forever. But it's a nice psychology to make the owner feel like they have something that's going to last forever. So we have the origin, we have the y-axis, we have the x-axis, we have the fact that the axis goes to infinity in all directions. And the way it's organized is organized into 4 component parts. This part, we call that the first part, is called quadrant, Q-U-A-D-R-A-N-T, quadrant 1. That's everything on above the x-axis on the right. Everything above the x-axis on the left is called quadrant, which I'm going to just put Q this time, quadrant 2. Below is quadrant 3. And here below is quadrant 4. So we have 4 quadrants on our coordinate plane. There's a fly running around in here that I don't like. So I'm going to, now, to make our picture look better, I'm going to take off the label on the top so we can use this space as if it was only for our coordinate plane. But you'll know that that's there because you can go back to it. Okay, so now we have our coordinate plane laid out for us. C-O-O-R-D-I-N-A-T-E, coordinate plane, P-L-A-N-E. The plane, the word plane, as it's used here, describes or tells us that this is a 2-dimensional flat surface. It has length, width, or it has east and west, north and south. So this is like the word news, north, east, south, and west. northeast, west, and south is where we get the word news from. Things happening in the north, in the south, in the east, in the west and in the east. So the word NEWS makes news. So we have our coordinate plane. We have the y-axis, which is vertical. We have the x-axis, which is horizontal. We have the origin, which is where the two intersect. Intersect is a word that you know because it's where two lines cross. Intersect. So the origin is the point of intersection. So now you also know that what we would do here in order to use our coordinate plane, the word plane for us is going to be a simple way, is flat, two-dimensional. So it has length and width. It has up and down and side to side. So that's two-dimensional. The reason I'm pointing that out now is because once we come to a little later discussion, you're going to see, or we're going to show, that that same thing applies in this kind of sense. If that looks a little bit like a ball, which I hope it does to you, if that was the planet Earth, let's say this was Earth. See, the Earth is a three-dimensional. See, the Earth is three-dimensional because it has thickness. It has north and south, east and west, and then it has this thickness, so you could go around it. Whereas on this flat board, you can't go around it because there's no other dimension that makes for another side. But on the Earth, we have that capacity. So when we talk about that, I'll show you that when you call Siri on your cell phone and ask Siri to give you some direction, it's because Siri is using the Earth as a coordinate plane that is 3D. And then I'll mention that when we come to it again. So that's why I'm mentioning two dimensions here, because we're going to come to something that's talking about three dimensions. And when you ask Siri to tell you where is the nearest restaurant, I want to show you why Siri can do that. So we need to understand dimension right now. And coordinate, the word coordinate here tells us where something is. Where a point is located. So Siri knows your coordinates because of your phone, and it knows the coordinate of the restaurant that you would like to know where it is, and so Siri can compare your coordinate to the coordinate of the restaurant and guide you to that place. So we'll talk about that. But for right now, in our two-dimensional plane, we know that we can establish the location of a point by marking off places here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, let's say. And we know that the value of y is positive above the line and is negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's say negative 6, negative 5, negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0. Because the origin is at the point 0. And we know on the x-axis, the corresponding marks would be positive 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, let's say. I won't write them here because I don't want to interfere with the word origin, but you know this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this way is negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, negative 6, negative 6, negative 5, negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0. So I probably should just go ahead and put this 5 here. 4, 3, 2, 1. So you can stop the video and expand it if you don't see it that clearly. So now, the coordinate we need to determine where a point is, it tells us where a point is located. So how does this work? Well, a coordinate is a point. Here's a definition, DEF, that's what we need. A point on the coordinate plane, COORDINATE, plane, is an ordered RED pair of numbers. So a point is an ordered pair of numbers. So the key word here to us is a point on the coordinate plane is an ordered pair. These are key words right here. So what does this mean? It means that in order to find one point on the coordinate plane, you need to have, come on in, you need to have two, or you need to have a ordered pair. So an ordered pair is an X and a Y. In order for you to find that a point. I'm going to pause this for 1 second, then we'll come back.
A long, long time ago, before time began, nature was still creating all the animals of the world, trying to give each animal something special. And nature had given Anansi the spider the ability to spin webs to catch all the bugs. Well, some of the bugs. Anansi walked past all the animals in the jungle. They were proud of what nature gave them. Anansi respected them all, which was fine, except for one thing. None of the animals respected Anansi. Well, at least that's what Anansi felt. But then he had an idea. He would find the most respected animal of the world and get his respect. Then all the animals would respect Anansi. And that was Mr. Tiger. Everybody respected Mr. Tiger. Anansi went over to Mr. Tiger's house and waited for him to come out. But when Mr. Tiger finally came out, he didn't even notice little Anansi waiting. Wait now! Yes? Mr. Tiger, how can I get your respect? Get my respect? Well, Mr. Tiger nearly laughed his tail off at such a request. But Anansi didn't care. Anansi was determined to get Mr. Tiger's respect. Well, okay. If you bring me Mr. Snake, the grumpiest creature in the entire world, only then could I respect little you. Bring Mr. Snake? How was Anansi gonna do this? Well, every day Anansi carefully studied Mr. Snake. What he ate, what he drank, and when he would rest. So now that Anansi knew Mr. Snake's routine, Anansi decided it was time to lay a trap. Oh, the poor thing. Well, Anansi realized strength was not the way to catch Mr. Snake. He would have to try something else. Then Anansi found the answer he was looking for. The next day, Anansi poured grease along the inside of the pit, hoping the snake would slip and fall in while trying to eat a whole hand of bananas. This was not the case. Did you actually think you could catch me? No, Mr. Snake. I was curious to see if it was true. Curious of what? Anansi? That I like eating spiders? No, not that. I was just curious to see if you were the longest creature in the jungle. Longest creature in the jungle? What? Man, I am the longest creature in the whole world. Bring me anything, and I will prove that I am longer. Anything? Even longer than a bamboo pole? No one's longer than that. Bring it so, and I will prove to you I am. Well, you better stretch out your belly so, because this pole is mighty long. Don't you worry about that. You just keep measuring so. And Anansi did, spinning his web tight to tie Mr. Snake to the pole. Well, Anansi, I am so impressed at what you've done. I will now grant you some respect. Thank you, Mr. Tiger, but I don't want your respect anymore. Well, not if it comes at the expense of someone else's feelings. Sorry. And nature was proud of Anansi. So proud that nature gave him a magical gift. The gift to make intricate webs that were incredibly sticky. So now he could catch all the bugs.
So now, the word ordered pair, order means in a specific arrangement. That's what we need to understand. Ordered means a specific arrangement. Pair, means two, like you have a pair of eyes, a pair of shoes, a pair of glasses, a pair of gloves. So pair means two. So ordered means in a specific, SPECIFIC, arrangement, ARRANGEMENT. Now that's a long way to go around saying one simple thing, that any coordinate on our plane has to show this order pair, where its pair is two, it's one x, one y, but the x always comes first. Partly because we tend to do things in math in alphabetical order. So since x comes before y in the alphabet, we customarily, and it's become the standard way of doing it, we write the x first. So now when we say we want to put a point on the plane, the word for that is we want to plot a point. So the one thing that I say to you guys most of the time is, math, we want to use sophisticated language so that people will know we are fairly capable when it comes to math. So we use the terms that are mathematical terms so that they fit with the sophistication of the student. So we plot a point means to put a point on the plane. And we know ordered pairs, there's going to be two numbers, and together they make 1 point that we will plot on the plane. Now let's look at before we start plotting anything, I'm going to give you the inside clues now. As you can see in quadrant 1, any point in quadrant 1 is going to be an x and a y coordinate. That'll give us a point. But the key to your understanding of this very well is to know that every point in quadrant 1 is going to be a plus for x and a plus for y, because it's going to be to the right, which is positive on x, and it's going to be up, which is positive on y. So every point in this quadrant is going to be a positive value for x and a positive value for y. Now, any point in this quadrant is also going to be x and y, but the difference is every point is going to be negative for x and positive for y, because it's going to be on the negative side of the x-axis and above for y. Now you can get the idea here. You can see you got negative, negative. So every point in this quadrant is going to be x, y also, but it's going to be negative for x and negative for y, because you can see it's negative this way and it's down, so it's negative. And finally, in the quadrant 4, every point here is also going to be x and y, but you can see it's going to be positive on x but negative on y, because everything is negative. So it's going to be plus, minus. So now we have a pretty good layout. So if I gave you a point, I'm going to just make up some points right now just for your own. So if I said plot I'm going to say right here, plot the following. So if you can see that, if you can't, you'll have to stop the tape and see it clearly. But it says plot negative 3, 7, that's 1 point. 3, 7, that's a second point. Negative 3, negative 7, that's a third point. And 3, negative 7 is the fourth point. So now, based on what I just told you, if you can see this well, you know that this point 3, 7 is in quadrant 1 because they're both positive and everything in quadrant 1 is positive, positive. You know that this point is in quadrant 2 because it's negative for x but it's positive for y. So it's negative for x and positive for y. So everything in this quadrant is negative, positive. So here you have negative, negative. Where is that? That has to be in quadrant 3 because everything in quadrant 3 is negative, negative. And finally, 3, negative 7 is in quadrant 4. 3, negative 7 is in here because it's positive, negative. So that's kind of the clue. So if you had a cluster of points to plot, and the question was, what quadrant is the point in? You don't have to actually plot the point to determine where it is. If you understand what I just said, every point that's plus plus is in 1. Every point that's minus plus is in 2. Every point that's minus minus is in 3. And every point that's plus minus is in 4. So you don't have to plot the things if you understand the concepts, because you know where the points are going to end up without plotting them based on what they look like. So let's plot these just for the sake of having the experience to do it. So the first point is negative 3, 7. So that means x is negative 3. So you go negative 1, 2, 3 on x. And when you get there, you turn and you go up 7. So we only went to 6. So we say, here's that point. We'll call it A. That's my negative 3, 7. So I'll check that off. Plus 3, 7. So plus 3, 1, 2, 3, and then I go up 7. Now that's going to be right in the middle of my axis, so I'm going to put it here and say that's point B. Then I have negative 3, negative 7. So I go negative 3, 1, 2, 3, and then I come down negative 7, was past my 6, and say that's C. Then I have 3, negative 7. I go 1, 2, 3, positive, and then down. So there's D. So I've now plotted those 4 points onto the graph. Now, they're not lined up perfectly. I can see that. That's off. But if I connected these, see, that would come here. My D should be right about there instead of this. And A would go to B, and B could come down to D. So now, we've plotted the 4 points onto our coordinate plane. One point is in quadrant 1, point B. Another point's in quadrant 2, which is point A. Point C is in quadrant 3, and point D is in quadrant 4. And if I had drawn them perfectly right, I would have a shape that you are familiar with that you would call a rectangle. Now we're at a point that is a good stopping point right now. And I probably will stop here and make this your first video introduction to the topics that we listed at first, and then we'll come back with follow-up tapes. But since we have this right in front of us, see, I have an opportunity to show you something that will be useful, and we'll come back to it. So you can see that if you had this rectangle, you might have a question that would say, what is the perimeter of this rectangle? Or what is the area inside this rectangle? Now, you know the perimeter you find by adding up the sides, and that tells you how far or how much the distance is around this figure. So let me just ask you to think about this. AB, the length of AB, this segment AB, which we would write like this, line segment AB, if I told you that was equal to 6, would you see that? And line segment AC, which we would write like this, if I told you that was equal to 14, would you see that? And if you don't see it, I would say, well, here's the explanation. See, point A is 1, 2, 3 spaces away from this y-axis. And point B is 3 spaces away from the y-axis on the positive side. So when I take this 3 and that 3, I get 6. Point A is 7 units up, and C is 7 units down. So when I add this 7 and that 7, I get 14. So if someone said, well, Dr. Whitaker, what is the area of this rectangle? I could say, well, that's easy, because I know area equals length times width. And if you tell me that this is 6 and this is 14, all I have to do is multiply 14 times 6. And I do that on the side, 14 times 6. 6 times 4 is 24, carry my 2. 6 times 1 is 6, and 2 is 8. So the area here will be equal to 84 square units, whatever I say the units are. If I say it's inches, square inches, feet, square feet, miles, square miles. So that's the area. If you wanted to trick me and say, what is the perimeter? I say that's no problem. Because if this is 6, this must be 6. If this is 14, this must be 14. So that's another 14. So the perimeter is adding. So 14 and 6 is 20. 14 and 6 is 20. And 20 and 20 is 40. So that's 40. So that's an example of how you might work with the coordinate plane and plotting the points. So this is going to be a good place to stop. But the next video, we're going to pick up here and follow this into the next category of our work. What you'll do is go over this and make sure you understand the coordinate plane, how it works, how you plot points. If it says connect the points, you connect them. And then you know the x-axis, the y-axis, coordinate 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. You know that plotting a point means to put the point onto the plane And each point is an ordered pair of numbers where X is first, Y is second. So I think that's a good place to stop. I'm going to look it over, and then we're going to continue with the next video that will get us into the real meat of the topics that we want to cover. But this is a very good foundation and a beginning. And you'll see how all of this fits together as we go forward. And so you take care of that. I'll work on the next thing. Be safe, work hard, and be happy. Bye-bye.